Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Bud Rice with the Bay Area ACT User Group. So tonight we've got kind of a full schedule here. I'm going to do my best to kind of lay out some high topics here that I've kind of got on my agenda here. And as we're kind of going along here, if you've got some comments or questions, if you can stick that over in the chat window, I'll do my best to be able to check on that as we're going here as well. So first off, good evening, everybody, and hope things are going well for everyone. I've kind of had my hands full. You've seen some email messages coming from me lately, and I kind of wanted to start with talking about that. So there is a licensing program that the ACT group uses to do registrations. The program is called Protexis. Now, I'm going to change my audience view here. Okay, I'm going to try to see if I can bring this up. And let's see if this pops up here. This little guy here, let me see if I can pull it up. This one here that's called Protexis. This is the licensing program that checks licensing registration against the master setup to make sure that you're licensed to use ACT. And the idea here is that you wouldn't have pirated software out there. So, you know, a zillion people are using one license of ACT, that kind of thing. So everybody goes to this kind of a licensing concept here. And ever since the version of ACT 2005, they've used this program called Protexis. So the publisher of Protexis, the guys that have been providing that service, they've decided they no longer want to have that program as one of their offerings that they do. So they're stopping and shutting down the whole operation that has to do with Protexis. When that happens, all licenses of ACT all the way back to 2005 are going to be affected because all of them use this Protexis licensing system in order to match registrations against valid licenses. So what the ACT group has done is they've come up with a way to patch licenses or versions of ACT during their coverage period. And what I mean by that is that when you buy a version of ACT, and let's say right now, if you were to buy version 20, there's a rolling window of fixes that they will provide over a 2-year window. And I say 2 years, but it's really a 2-version window. So if ACT 20 comes out, then they have ACT 20 and ACT 19. Those are the 2 versions. And if patches or updates or those kinds of things come out, then those versions would also have access to those updates, because those are within the 2-year window of ACT saying that we're going to make sure that we're covering that. It's similar to what Microsoft might do with Office, where somebody might be running a Office 2007, and the current version of Office is Office either 2016 or Office 365, basically the same thing. But that's the current version of Office. And Microsoft does have some fix-ups and patches going back from 2013 to 2016 and Office 365. But if you go backwards any farther, Office 2010 or Office 2007, there are no updates, there are no patches, there's nothing for those earlier guys. Same thing is true here with the ACT group. So they've tried to extend it a little bit farther, meaning that anybody that's on version 2018, version 2018 and newer, they're going to have patches that are going to be available. And I think they're going to come out somewhere around the 20th or right towards the end of the month to update those versions. And anything earlier than that, version 17 and older, those ones are not going to have any patches or anything that are going to go with that. Now, Joe just put me just shot me a chat saying that there are still some Office 2010 patches that are available, but I think you understand my story here. As things kind of get stale and older, nobody's really going back too far in terms of trying to get things updated. So If you're on version 17 and older, you're going to have to upgrade ACT to get around this licensing thing. Anybody that's on version 18 and newer, then you're going to have access to a patch that will basically fix that. And how it fixes that is it gets away from using this for Texas licensing protocol and uses a completely different one that they've gotten involved with now. So where this becomes an issue is that if you were to use ACT and it's on your system and let's say you have version 17 and you're off and running on version 17, ACT's going to keep working and it's going to seem like it's the same old to you. But if you try to install it on another system or you have a substantial hardware change, that triggers the Protexus component to say he's had a substantial change to this machine. Let's make sure that the machine is still okay. And as soon as that is triggered, then the licensing will fail. And then you won't be able to open up ACT because it's going to say that you don't have a licensed copy and you're beyond the 30-day trial period. And then you're going to be dead in the water. So the only way around that then would be to upgrade ACT to one of the supported versions to get up and get going again. So that's the story. V18 and one of the other guys on chat just told me, yeah, it's going to be V18.2 is the version that will accept the patches. But if you're on version 18, you can get upgraded to version 18.2 and then accept the patch. Now I have an email. I'll try to show it to you guys maybe here in a few minutes that I have ready to go that kind of outlines the steps for how you go through the upgrade process. And if you wanted to do it as soon as you get the email message from me, you could start the upgrade process. The patch that I'm talking about may not be available yet. And like I said, they're telling me it's going to be somewhere around the 21st or 22nd of November. But you could get ready by making sure you've got all of the updates for ACT already up and going. And then as the patch comes up, then you can just apply the patch and it should be fairly quick. So in order to do that, let's talk about that and walk our way through there for a minute. I'm going to close this window down here for a minute. But there's a couple of things you have to be wary of, and this email that I'm going to send out kind of outlines it a little bit. I'm going to close down ACT for a minute, and I'm going to go to the here. All right, good. Okay, so apparently you can't see my screen, so let me see if I can fix that. Here we go. See if you can see that now. Still no. Okay, great. Let's see. Come on, show me. Come on. There we go. Okay. So now if you see these icons that are all over the screen here, if you go over to the ACT icon, you're going to do a right mouse click on it. And then if you look on this list of things you get, and again, remember, it has to be a right mouse click, you're going to see Run as Administrator. And you're going to click on that by doing a left mouse click on that. If you go down and you have your ACT icon on the taskbar and you do a right mouse click, you might see all this other gobbledygook stuff up here, but you're still going to see an ACT Premium selection down here. And then you have to do a right mouse click on that again. And then you'll see the Run as Administrator, which is the same thing as the other one I showed you up on the desktop. So when you click on that, ACT's going to start up normally. You're not going to really see any difference in what ACT looks like or how it operates, but behind the scenes, because of the way you started up ACT, Run as Administrator, it's going to allow you to do some registration stuff that you can't do if you open up ACT normally and then try to do some updates. So close down ACT, do the right mouse click, Run as Administrator, and then it's going to come up and get going for you. Now, once you're up, if you go up to Help, and then, hang on a minute here, ACT Notifications, and you click on that, you should see, let me make sure that you guys can see, you should see a little window that pops up here. There it is in the little corner here. And it says, in my case, it says you already have the latest version of ACT. Yours might say there is a new update available. And if you were to click on that, it's then going to walk you through the process of upgrading whatever updates are out there for you on your version of ACT, and then bring you up to the latest version. Now, I would do this a couple of times just to make sure that after you've done the updates, go back to ACT notifications, and then you want to get to the point where this is what it says. You already have the latest version. Once you're there, then if you wait until about the 22nd or 23rd or so of November, and then you do this again, you're going to see another thing here that says, oh, there's another version out here for you. And then you make that update, then it's going to make the licensing patch for you, provided you're on one of these supported versions. Okay, so that's the pitch. Now, if I go to ACT Marketing, and we're going to talk a little bit about marketing tonight, and then I go to create, give me a second here while this thing fires up. I'll close this guy down here too. Come on, close down. Creative. By the way, sorry, I sent you guys the wrong. the first reminder I sent out today, I grabbed the wrong template, and that's my fault, and I had to turn around and send it again. But if I go here to this, and I say here under supported registration, this is a email I've got licensed up and ready to, not licensed up, but configured and ready to go. And it's going to have a little bit of the spiel again. And then as you come down here, it's going to have some text and some instructions for what to do. So I've got all this all set up and everything for you guys already. And how do you start it up as administrator? How do you do about ACT? And then in the end, this is supposed to say whatever version you're on, and then it should say update 2. So once you're on the patched version for the licensing and you're on a supported version, in the end, you're going to want to look at this and see if this says update 2. And I have it written right up in here for you as well. Understanding is the licensing folks should show update 2 at the end of this line. So you're looking for update 2. So I'm going to send this out in the next day or two, and this is all set up and ready to go. And then that should get everybody on version 18 all the way to the latest version of ACT past this licensing issue, and you're going to be back up and going again. Okay, whew. All right, there's that was a great one. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears and talk a little bit about where ACT is today. So where ACT is today is it's got version 21 has just started shipping, V21, and there are a couple of things that are kind of interesting that people have been waiting for. A version, backing up a little bit, they brought in the ability to have custom tables. We've talked about that at a couple of our sessions, and we're going to talk about that again when we get into 2019. I've got plans to do kind of a whole setup from scratch, and how do you utilize custom tables and what could you use them for, and also the marketing components, and kind of blend it all together so everybody can kind of see, why ACT moved in the direction that it did, and what new things can you take advantage of to really move your operation to the next level. And we're gonna spend a lot of time in 2019 focusing on just that. So on the opportunity side, here's some changes, and when I click on opportunities, you guys are going to go, whoa, that looks interesting. So I'm going to click over here on the nav bar under opportunities, and if I click here, you're going to see some different things. One of them is that you've got kind of a visual up at the top here that says some different things. One of them is how many open counts are there. Well, it says there's 214. So that means that down below over here, the data that you see in this area down here is being reflected up in these boxes you see at the top, designating different types of information. So again, this says open count 214, open value $1,493,800. So, and these things are all being powered by information that you see at the bottom. And there's more things. If I kind of zoom over here a little bit, you've got more things, closed rate, 43%, closed lost value, average opportunity age, all of these things that you see down here. Now, these are not hot boxes, meaning that you don't click on these and something happens. Just think of these things as windows into the data that you see down below. So there's nothing that happens up here. It's just information that's happening down here that you're seeing reflected in these boxes that are up at the top. Now, there's filters that you can see over on the right, and you can get to them by clicking on this little arrow thing here, and it will open the window or collapse the window. And then as you're up in here, you can then determine some filtering that you might like to see in here. So if I were to say things like, if it's greater than 70%, then you're going to see these boxes at the top, these visual boxes, all change because the data that's down below has also changed. And then one of the members just said, "Hey, bud, make sure you're talking about things that are plus feature sets, meaning things that ACT has added but aren't part of the normal subscription model." That make sure that I'm pointing that out. And I will tell you that most of the feature sets that you see from ACT, all of the stuff that you're used to seeing, is included. But a lot of these new things that I'm going over with you, these are all new things that are part of a subscription scenario. So, for instance, if you're on ACT Pro, as an example, you're not going to get this dynamic pipeline stuff. It's part of the subscription side of the fence. Now, what's interesting about that, let me pause for a minute, is that ACT has tried to walk down two lanes of traffic at the same time. One lane is, how do you keep ACT cost effective for single and small operators so that they can get a really good feature set to manage their relationships and their contact records in ACT. And then at the same time, how do you provide other organizations that have a need for more power and depth? And how do you manage to provide that functionality as well? And the truth of the matter is that one costs a lot more than the other one costs. So being able to put in a lot more features costs a lot more money and development cost and that kind of thing. So what they've tried to do is give people an opportunity to choose. Well, that's a lot of fancy stuff, and I just need some basic stuff. So over on this side, that should work out okay. And then things that they really want to see, some of this more advanced stuff, yeah, I'd like to have that. I think that can help move my business along. Well, there's going to be a cost for that. And then you have to figure out whether or not the cost benefit is enough for you to move from one lane to the other. And again, as we're kind of going along here and in other sessions, we can kind of talk about what might be a determining factor in helping you decide which track you ought to be on. But this area here that we're talking about right now in this opportunity management stuff is part of the subscription process. So if you were to change some of the filtering over here, the information that you see listed below changes, and so does the information that you see in the visual boxes that are up at the top. You notice the count has changed to 18 based on where we're at. So now all of these should be greater than 70%, and all the boxes changed. So you can set your filters for what you'd like to have them do. They're sticky. In other words, they'll stay there until you move them around and do something different again. They have talked about doing some things where maybe you would like to see these boxes of information at the top, and then once you've had a chance to look at that, maybe you would like to collapse that to get more information at the bottom. So that's been a thing that we've talked about doing. So they're thinking about doing that as they're kind of going along here. So today, this is kind of a fixed window set over here, and then your live data is down here at the bottom. So you have the detail view, like you're all used to seeing, of an opportunity, regular detail view, nothing really has changed there. The list view that has the boxes, the view boxes up at the top. And then this is something that's completely new. It's called pipeline view. And if I click on this, now you're going to see different information at the top here, depending on what I've filtered on over here, along with each of the sales stages that you might see down below. So the terminology for what you see at the bottom, I got to make sure I use the correct word here. It's called Kanban, Kanban, I think is what it's called. And the idea there is that the ability to see a visual representation of your information, but then to be able to change that information in an easy way through drag and drop. So that's the idea behind this view, which is utilizing the Kanban techniques of being able to visually see information and then modifying information utilizing drag and drops. So here's what that means. So if you look at the bottom here, you're going to see these are some stages that somebody might move through. So over here, if you did a service site visit, you can see over here, that's worth 25%. And then if you were to put together a service proposal, now the probability of closing has now moved to 50%. And now the service is awaiting legal, and now that's at 90%. And then you're used to moving something through the different sales stages based on something that you're doing. And as you're moving somebody through the sales process, the percentage of the probability of closing changes depending on where you're moving that opportunity. So with this capability, you now can grab one of these and drag it over to a different stage. So this one here, I said, okay, well, this one's actually going to be over here, so I'm going to drag it over here. This guy here, I'm going to move him back down because it didn't go so well, so I'm moving him back down. And as I'm making movements down here in this bottom area, the top screen is changing depending on what I'm doing down here. So the idea would be is that you can manage visually a pretty good size feature, but number of opportunities that you want to oversee. And then by using drag and drop capabilities, you can move them forward or backwards depending on where you might think they are in the sales process. So this is all brand new stuff that you see here. And then you got some more view boxes that you can kind of see at the top over here again. And again, as you move things from sales stage to sales stage, then you're going to see them also change up at the top here and move around as well. So this ability to do drag and drop kind of stuff and move things around, oops, it's too hard here, is all brand new stuff, and they've worked hard trying to get this kind of capability because people were saying that this is something that they thought was important to have in a product like ACT, and so here you go. So the same thing here again with filters. You can change and modify all these filters, and then you can collapse the window back down. But dragging and dropping and putting things in whichever category it belongs to, easy, fast, and pretty slick. I think that's pretty slick. And so that's part of the opportunity updates that you're going to get from version 21. Also, in terms of insight, and insight is what is in the end going to take the place of dashboards, and what they've done here is they've done a lot more work in terms of what you can see and what you can modify. You can build your own views and put your own information up at the top over here. You can have different bundles of views. So if I said, well, I want to do sales metrics, watch what happens over here on the left. If I choose sales metrics, all of the windows changed, and I've got a whole different set of criteria now based on insight views that I wanted to put together because that was information that was important to me to help manage the information that I want. So by being able to put these things together and then create views that match up with what I want to look at, this is all driven by true data that's underneath it and ready to go. See, if I click on that one, I can see more detailed information down below. And and they want to add even more capabilities to this eventually, so you can not only be able to see stuff, but you're going to be able to drill down. So, you know, if I want to see this PTA meeting, I'll be able to drill down. Today you've got the graphical view, and in some cases some detail view, and next is going to be the drill down capability as well. So they've done a lot of work in terms of what these insight screens can do and can look like. And as they build this out, like I said, this is going to take the place of what was dashboards before. And one of the reasons for that is that the technology that's in place to build these graphs and charts is an updated technology set that enables them to do more things with this than you ever could with the dashboards. So the dashboards were kind of an older technology. Let me see if I can bring up the dashboards here. Give me 1 second. Yeah, here's dashboards. You see, it was turned off. Someone turned that on. And now here's dashboards. So these dashboards, the technology behind these isn't anywhere near as sophisticated as what you see with the insights ones. Now these have drill down capabilities, so I like that. I can click on this hot link here and get down to the contact information that I want. So that's what they're working on next for the insight dashboards, is to be able to drill down into any information that you see there. So that's insights, and the ability to have dynamic visualizations of things that are going on, and then be able to manage and see trends quickly and easily of your information that's important to you. Okay, give me a second. I'm going to pause for a second and look to see if there's any chat things here. Okay, let me take a quick look here. Still okay? Yeah, we did that. Yeah, we talked about that. Yes, that's correct. We talked about that. That's okay. 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 So we pretty much hit some of the top areas here on the things that were in chat. Okay, so now I'm going to click on one more thing, and it's called Act Connect. So when you click on Act Connect, this is the ability, and this is where a lot of the behind the scenes work has been going on with Act, in order to make it a more open environment for different products to be able to talk with Act. So what they've done is, in some cases, let me go back in time a little bit, and if you were on version 18 and you went to version 19, you might have said, okay, well, I'm on the latest version, but I don't really see a lot that's happened. Between version 18 and version 20, a lot of the work was actually being done here in the Act Connect area. So you could think of Act Connect as something like a app store for your iPhone or for your Android phone or something like that. And the idea here is that you can have and select different products that you'd like to have Act talk to. This is relatively new, and as we move forward, you're going to see more and more development happen in this end as more and more companies build their tool set to be able to access Act with their products. So here's an example. Here's QuickBooks. So there is a link that is supported that allows information from the Act side to talk to information on the QuickBooks side, and they can do different things. Now, some of this happens through another party called Zapier, which is kind of like a traffic cop. And Zapier kind of sits in the middle and says, okay, if QuickBooks will do these things and Act will do these things, then us as the traffic cop, we can help facilitate the connecting of those two things. And that's what Zapier does. And at another session, we'll talk a little bit more about Zapier, but you may need to have a Zapier account to be able to facilitate the moving of information between two systems like Act and QuickBooks. The idea would be is that if you were to create a new account in QuickBooks, it could come over and create a new record inside of ACT. Or maybe you wanted to go the other way. Or maybe you wanted to say, well, if I create a new record in QuickBooks, I'd like to have that not only create a new record for me in ACT, but I'd like for it to schedule a activity, maybe something like a to-do where I would send out a welcoming email message or something like that. So there are some linking through this traffic cop situation that I'm talking about with Zapier, where it says, if QuickBooks will do this and ACT can do that, then we'll be in the middle and help connect these things. So QuickBooks might say, well, we can create a contact record and push that information over to ACT. And Zapier says, okay, well, if you'll do that, then I'll ask the ACT guys to see if they can accept that information and create a contact record. And as soon as the ACT side says, yep, we can do that, then bingo, there's a new method for moving information from two systems back and forth between each other. So that's the idea of what's going on here with ACT Connect. I know it's kind of a high level, how do you do, but that there's going to be a lot of functionality in this, and it's something that we're going to talk about in much more detail as we're going along here. But at least I wanted to wet the whistle a little bit that there's kind of an app store scenario that's building behind the scenes that will enable different, ACT to talk to different products, and that's what's going to go on there. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the ACT e-marketing component. And if I were to click on this, you guys can see here's some email templates that I've been kind of building along the way here. Now, the ACT group has been trying to slay two dragons at the same time. And how that's going to play out, I got my eyes on this one. Here's where I'm trying to go. Today, with what is known as ACT e-marketing, you have the capability of creating, we could argue whether or not they're nice looking or not, but in many cases, if they're not so nice looking, it's probably my fault, and not the product's fault. But you can do some pretty neat things with the templates so that they look fairly nice. So, so if I were to click on this one as an example, so this was the one of the emails that I sent out here. This was when I was working on, and this was the wrong one that I sent out because I was still screwing around with it. But you can see, this is what one could look like, and it's got graphics in it and pretty nice text and some information at the bottom and all this kind of stuff. So the ability to create a nice email piece that you could then do something with was the whole intent behind ACT e-marketing. And then once something were to go out and you were to decide that, okay, this template is now good, I want to send it out, then under the e-marketing component, you could say simply, I want to send an email campaign out. And then you could determine who you wanted to send it to. So if I was to say, well, I'd like to send it to this group, okay, what group do you want to send it to? And you might have a list of groups that you could then select from. And then once you selected either the lookup or the group, then you can select which template you want to send them. And then what do you want to have the subject line be? And then as soon as you do that, and then you click on Send Campaign, all of those contact records who you've tagged to be able to receive a email template from you, and the email template that you selected right here, those two things are brought together and they're placed in the delivery queue to go out. Then they're either going to go out relatively soon by you saying send now and you hit send campaign. And by that I mean sometimes it's just in the queue for a little bit as it's processing your information. So even though you say right now, it might be 5 minutes or something like that. Or you could say, I want to send it at a specific time. So here we are at what time is it? 20 to 8 or something, and maybe we've been working on a nice campaign that we want to send out, but we don't want to send it out now because nobody's in the office, and we want them to get it maybe at 9:30 tomorrow morning when they're in the office. So after we do all of our work and create the template and do all that, then we could say send on the date and what time we wanted it to be, 9:30 a.m., and the date would be tomorrow. Then when we say send campaign, then it not only brings the contact records with the template that you wanted to send and blends those together and puts them in the queue, but it also puts a timer on the queue so that it actually executes it on the date and time that you had selected. So that's how that was also working. Then you can come back, and under the tracking mechanism, you'd be able to see, did they go out? Did I have any bounces? Did anybody opt out? And all of that kind of information in terms of tracking what happens once something goes out. Now, the reason I'm slowing down a little bit and making my speech is a little halting as I'm going here, and I'm just catching myself doing that, is I want to make sure that I'm being as clear as I can as to that was the intended purpose. That was the intended purpose of that. So this meaning the ACT marketing components, depending on when you got ACT, you may have some level of what this account will do for you. Here's what I mean by that. Quite a while ago, if you were to get ACT, they would give you something like 500 contacts that you could send information to. I think they dropped that 5 months ago or something to where it was more like 250. And now, as they move to their next family of e-marketing capabilities, now you have to be on a full account to be able to take advantage of some of this stuff. Now, what I've laid out for you has been what the ACT marketing component has had available for quite some time. Today, they've changed this a little bit, and now they've added something called marketing automation. And what the marketing automation component does is it moves the email marketing capability to a whole different level. Where's my frozen out here? Yeah, it's good. That's good. All right, let me fire it back again. So I'm going to switch databases when I get ACT going again here. Sorry. Yeah, I was in a demo database to show you guys some of the other stuff, and then that doesn't have the marketing automation component built into it, so it was my fault. Come on, let's go. Oh, there we go. Okay, let's go again. So the idea behind ACT marketing automation is to take this to the next level by having the marketing components now do stuff for you. So not just you creating output, but also having the system start to do things for you based on things that may happen. So let me change gears here. Let me change databases here. Okay, so if I were to bring up ACT marketing automation, you're going to see a completely different view, and it has more to do with now the ability to do some workflow capability. So let me bring this up. Now, the idea would be is that you're still going to create templates just like we've done in the past. And now, if you go over to creating some marketing campaigns, you can now start to develop this kind of stuff. This is more workflow driven. So this could be something where I send out an email. Based on what happens with that email, these other things are going to now start to happen. This is a whole nother level of what ACT can deliver. Wasn't possible before, and it's head and shoulders above what you could ever get done with the regular ACT e-marketing components, which basically was pretty templates against ACT contact records, and you would send that out. This is completely different from that to the extent that you can still create pretty templates. You're still going to have them going against ACT contact records, but how that happens is now going to be completely different. So let me step back and say, if I click on templates, here's where you build pretty templates again. So now if I come over here and I open up this template, I was going to ask you for a show of hands, but I won't. But many of you on the call tonight would have gotten this email from us when you said you wanted to participate in the webinar this evening. And this one here, if you look at this, I mean, it's a nice looking piece. There's Smiley Dinah and there's me here and all this information. It's got different kinds of images. Over here, you have the ability to drag in text boxes and images to put pictures up, and buttons and dividers and videos if you wanted to bring in videos. But here's where you put all the components together to make a nice looking template. You can also create rows where you could say, okay, if I bring this row over, for instance, it's going to bring in a placeholder for me to put something in there that's going to look like this. If I were to drop an image on top of that, the image would go all the way from side to side, or the place for that image would go side to side. So this image that you see here was utilizing this component. You can make one that has two components in it, like this one here. This has two boxes, and this one here was used for that. So one side I put text in, one side I put images in. So you can begin to build a template to look exactly how you want it to look, and it would be over here. And then you could see it. You could then click on and preview it. You could send a test message out. You could do all of that stuff and then have this be ready to go. So once you've built your templates and had what I call assets loaded, and assets were things like the text documents, the text information you want, the images that you want, and you have all those assets up, and then you start moving that information around to make a pretty looking template, then you've got these templates loaded that you can then decide to do something with. That's where the drip marketing things come into place. So once you decide that you want to create a drip campaign or a marketing campaign, then you can do things like this. So I'm going to say open up this campaign. And now this is an actual workflow that can do things for you. So in this case, it's going to send out an email marketing piece, one of the templates up here. So if you build a workflow that looks like this, if this says I want to send out an email template, then it's going to run over here, grab the email template that you'd created and named whatever you wanted it to be called, and it's going to use that piece right here. Then it can do other things based on that. So in this case, I wanted it to change a field name, and I wanted it to schedule an activity. So that's what this little mini workflow thing did over here. So I'm going to come over here to actions, and I'm going to say campaign properties. And if I go here, I can explain what launches this, because this is where you're going to get an opportunity to see how this stuff works. So this is where you just call it what you want to call it. And by the way, as you're listening to this, I don't want you to be overwhelmed in terms of the information I'm throwing at you. We're going to go over this a number of times as we're working on this together, not tonight, but as I start to develop different workflow scenarios so you could see the power and depth of what you might be able to use this for and do with this as we're going along here. So just relax and just watch what's going on here, and then And then in the future, as we're going along here, I think this thing will start to stick as you go. Now, I'll be honest with you and tell you that when I first started to see this and play with this, I was going, okay, this is going to be complicated. And to some degree, it sort of is. But if you can just use little tiny steps and little tiny building blocks, then it kind of comes together for you. And we'll do all that together as we're going along here. So, for instance, this says smart tags and blah, blah, blah. Over here where it says list name, it uses groups. So here, and I can't do this now because I'd already created this one, but over here where I have this drop down, if I click on that, it's going to be a listing of all of my different groups. So for instance, this one says AWS 2018-11-15 call info. I'm going to go over here to groups. And if I go into here and here, this is the group that's being powered from that. So the marketing automation component is using this group to do the things that I'm telling it I want it to do back over here. So it's using that group that you just saw over here. Now I'm going to pause for a minute and say, what does that mean? Well, not only is it a way for you to tie a ribbon around a set of contact records that you want to do this with or to, but because of ACT's capability of having groups that are dynamic in nature, meaning that people can come in and out of the group automatically based on something that you may have done or to the contact record by changing information on the contact screens, records can come in or out of groups based on changes that you're making that makes them dynamic. Then the workflow of ACT marketing also can take on that capability. So here's what I mean by that. If you had a group that said clients and you wanted to send out a number of things based on clients, and you had a contact record that was a prospect or a lead, and through your great salesmanship and your sparkling personality, they got changed and they said, I want to have whatever you're selling, I want some of that. And they get moved from prospect or lead to client. That dynamic group that you may be using to be used as part of your ACT marketing automation campaign would then have a new member that came in because maybe you changed their ID status from lead or prospect to client. They now automatically be put into this group. And what this can do is periodically check to see if anybody's been added to the group. And that's what this says right here. That basically says, hey, bud, you make a nice group, and if you want me to, I'll run over there and I'll look at it every day. And if something's happened over there and you've added somebody, I'll go get it. So that's exactly what this says. So if I've added somebody into the client group, they're now going to be part of the workflow for that ACT marketing component, and they'll start to work their way through the system based on that. Now, that's a lot of words I just laid on everybody, but that is super powerful. And as we spend more time talking about this stuff, you're going to go, wow, now I'm starting to get it. I can kind of see what's going on here. Because if the ability, and I'm going to, so basically that's what this screen does. What do you want to call it? How do you want to load it with groups? When do you want to have it checked? Every day. And then that's what this campaign is called. That's what this does. Then this is, okay, now that you got that, what do you want to do with that? That's what this workflow component does. So if I were to go here and say, show me the email template, here's where I've loaded the template that I built over here. And I've said, that's the template I want to use. So now it's loaded it up, and here's the template again. So now it's loaded and part of the workflow that you see right here. Once it sends it out, then you can build other things that can happen. So in this case, and it's hard to read, and I apologize for that, but I'll just kind of talk our way through that. This says, after you send out the email, let me back up again. After you send out the email, I want you to wait a day, and you can determine how long you want this to be, but I wanted to be able to demonstrate it to you guys. Wait a day, and then I want these other things to happen. And what I want to have happen is I want to update a field that would say Act Marketing Automation sent call information. And then I want to schedule an activity that I want to have happen after that. Let me pause for a minute. This is these two steps that you see included in this box right here. So what if a guy gets the email, then he drops into this box, and then once he gets to this box, these magic things start happening down here. And one of them says, what if I change the ID status from client to super client? Well, it would happen right here on this step. And then if I did that, what would happen if a whole nother marketing campaign then launched based on the ID status saying super client? So you can daisy chain these things together so that as people are doing things and opening up email messages and selecting decision things on it, yeah, I'm interested in this, no, I don't want that. And as they're clicking and clacking on these things that are part of your workflow, all kinds of other things can be happening behind the scenes. So in this session that we're doing tonight, I used a little bit of both. And I think there's a couple of guys that signed up a little bit late. So you might get an email piece from me that's going to be late, but I just wanted to demonstrate how this worked. So if you get that, you can just say, okay, where's that piece that Bud was talking about? Yeah, I got a little late. But I want on the next time that we go through, instead of you guys having to send me back an email that says, yeah, I'm in. Oh yeah, Bud, I'd like to be part of the webinar that you got going on, or I'm not going to be able to make it, but I'd like to see the recording. I could have selections on the email that I send out from you, and if you said, yes, I'd like to attend, you clicked on that, automatically puts you in the group. Or if you said, no, I can't attend, but I'd like to be the recording of it, automatically puts you in the group. And then as you're going along here, as soon as I send out the one piece, I don't have to do all of the behind the scenes jumping around saying, okay, who opened it, who responded back and said, hello, I'd like to come to the session. And then I got to take all those and put those into a different group. And then who opened it but didn't respond back? Okay, let me send them a different thing. All that thrashing around that I do, I can build that into these workflows. And once I build the texts that I want to have, then not the templates that I want to have, then just match them up with where they're going to fit in, and then all the other stuff will all happen behind the scenes for me. That's hot. I mean, this is, think about that for a minute. That's hot. So, and I had, James was asking, and it's a good question. Will Act Marketing and Act Marketing Automation still live under the same tent? And there's a huge, I don't want to use the word battle, but there's some arm twisting going on about that. I think the answer should be yes. I think somebody should be able to pick and choose what they'd like to do, and then be able to utilize the tools to be able to do what they would like to do. I think they're thinking that you might be able to do everything you'd want to do with the active marketing component by itself. I'm not so sure. Not so sure, but maybe the idea is if they were to flesh it out a little bit, maybe it could. Today, I'm more comfortable with both of them being available, and we got to kind of see how that plays out as it goes. But there's there's a definite place for what you can do with a nice looking piece, go into a set of contact records, fast, easy, and that's the Act marketing component. There's also a more upscale capability through the Act marketing automation with workflows, so you can kind of build all that together inside of there. And I think that there's value in both things. But there's some there's some behind the scenes arm twisting going on right now. And I'm on the side of I'd like to have choices. I'd like to see people have both. So those are the biggies that are coming down the chute with Act version 21, which just started shipping within the last few days, and the ability to do so much. Now you guys have asked a couple times here, and let me say it again. Some of this stuff will necessitate higher tiers in terms of where you might want to be to have access to some capabilities. So the ability to sit back and go, I'd like to have this and this, will determine where you're going to want to end up. And if you're on the, no, I just want, be able to build relationships with contact records, manage my calendar, be able to send information out through just regular old email, link to Outlook, and be able to write letters and do all that stuff. Wow, then the Act Pro version would be a perfect fit, and because that capability matches up with that. And then if somebody needs a little bit more and they want some custom tables, then they can do that. And again, we'll have more conversations on custom tables and what you can do. And then somebody else that wanted to go all the way to the automation workflow side of the thing through marketing automation, then that could be a fit for them. So they're trying to expand the family and allow people to pick and choose what's a good fit for them without having to step out and go somewhere else. So I applaud the effort. I just want to make sure that it works in a logical way that people can get to and use the power and flexibility that the tool is trying to deliver to them. Okay, so that's that. I've been talking for almost an hour already. So there's a couple of things I just wanted to kind of show everybody real quick. If you guys have done updates to Windows, you may not have even noticed this, but you've noticed I'm on Windows 10 over here. Let me open up my window again here so I can make sure you guys can see this. Here we go. Okay, so if I were to, I don't know if you guys have clicked on this. So here's your search window thing over here. You could just type in something and search for it. But this little icon that you see over here, it says Task View. If I hover over it, if you click on that, watch what happens. Not only does it have things that are active and open right now, but I can go back over time and open up things that I've been working on back. And that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So if I were to, let me pick on something here. So if I was to, let's see. Now here's this. So if I were to click on this Word document over here, it's going to open up that document, hopefully. And there it is. So instead of me having to hunt and peck and look around for it, if I just come over here and it's something that's happened relatively soon, I'm going to be able to see that information right now. And that's pretty cool. I have to say, I kind of like that. And that, again, that's this little task view guide that you see over here at the side. The other thing is I've kind of started to change a little bit on how I'm managing documents. Let me show that to you also. I'm going to go to the Dropbox and in here, and let's see, reference, orders. Okay, so I've started to do things in reverse sort order here, where I'm going to start putting dates in at the front end. And I understand that there's dates over here, but visually I'm starting to change how I'm thinking about managing files. So here's the date of the incident, the thing that happened, what it was about, and who was it with. And then as I'm going down, I'll be able to use this naming convention as a way of, I think, maybe even find information easier. So you all might have your own method for doing that, but I'm kind of playing around with this idea here for a little bit as well. So little after 8 o'clock, that's our get together, folks. I hope you guys like that. The things recorded, I'll go ahead and convert it to a download link, and I'll send everybody that information as well. Keep your eyes open for my update document that shows how you do the updates to your ACT database to get you ready for the patch that's going to come up. And I think we did pretty good tonight, you guys. I appreciate your attendance, and if you have thoughts or things you'd like to see us drill down on and cover a little bit, I'd love to hear that. But again, in 2019, what I'd like to do is really start from scratch and say we're going to pretend that we're a company X, and here's how we might want to manage that company. Here's some workflows we might want to do. Here's how we might want to make some custom tables that they might be able to use, and kind of build some screens and some fields around a kind of fleshed out look-see of what a business might be able to configure and make ACT do to enhance their ability to manage their information. So that's coming in 2019. So again, thank you, everybody. I appreciate your attendance, and keep your eyes open for the other things for me, and I certainly appreciate that. Thank you, everybody. Good night.